So one of the things I've noticed the most, and it's one of the most controversial, is the idea of grief, because your children haven't died, and so a lot of times you don't get credit for the grieving process. Also, if not very many people know that you've placed a child, they don't understand that you're in pain and something is going on. They just see you maybe retreating or going through some depression, so it's hard. Society doesn't see that very much, and they don't understand it. But grief is real. What you're going through is complete loss. It doesn't necessarily mean regret. It just means that you're feeling the pain of loss. And so do you mind telling a little bit about that grief that you felt and how you deal with it? Because I think it's something that's really hard.
Well, you have to acknowledge it, for one. You have to be receptive to the fact that you are feeling it and know that it's okay. I remember the physical pain. I think that was the biggest shock to me, was the physical pain I felt that first week after
real.
Placement, and thinking he's just over there. Like he's not gone forever. I know he's fine. There's no reason I should be feeling this way, but I literally could not will myself out of bed. I couldn't get myself to get up and get moving because it hurt too much and I missed him too much, and I couldn't believe, like, how did I just do what I did? I mean, did that really just happen? It almost felt like a dream. And then I started acknowledging it. I started talking about it. And I think that was probably one of the turning points, is being able to talk about it. And even a year later, having one of my now best friends come in, and her saying that your story was part of the influence on my decision to place. And that was like, okay, that helped me heal a lot, because then I helped somebody, but I hope I can help her on her journey. And even, 8 and 10 years down the road, it still hits you at moments that you don't expect it.
I think it's interesting you say, that acknowledging grief, and it's like, well, what does that mean? I think it means that you're saying, I'm hurting. This hurts. And I think sometimes you don't want to say that, because I know you've mentioned that you've kind of felt like you were told you made this decision.
Now deal with it.
Now deal with it. You shouldn't feel bad about a decision that you felt like you were supposed to make. Well, guess what? We all make decisions that maybe are hard, that, I don't want to do this. I don't want to go to this particular school, or I don't want to take this job, but it's the best job for me. There's always these moments where we don't necessarily regret the moment, but it was still hard. And sometimes we don't want to admit that. It's like too much of a dichotomy in our mind. And so we just shove down the grief. But no, we can say, this stings. This is sad. This is hard. Yes, I chose it. Yes, it was what I wanted to do. Yes, I felt it was best. But it's still hard. And I think a lot of times people hold back, birth parents hold back in front of the adoptive parents because they don't want to make them feel bad. And maybe it's not always the best to like have really hard grief together, but it's still, I don't think you need to hold it back as much as you feel sometimes. Just let it out.
Mine was I finally let myself cry, and I cried and cried and cried in bed to the point where I couldn't even get out of bed. Matter of fact, I don't remember even getting up to go to the bathroom. I think I was sobbing, and I had just soaking wet hair from the tears, and my mother, not understanding and conflicted, not knowing what to say, completely unaware of what's allowed and what's not allowed. And I remember her pulling my hair out of my face and out of my eyes, and she said, "You made your decision, now deal with it." And it was so hurtful for me because I needed to do this, and I felt like she was telling me I wasn't allowed to. So I shoved it in a place that I felt like it was safe, because I felt like the environment wasn't safe for me to express those emotions and feelings. And I didn't realize that I was creating a ticking time bomb. It was a pressure cooker. And through those years of not crying and not talking about it and not acknowledging that it's okay to cry, you know, and that it was okay to get mad and it was okay to talk about it, you know.
You had nowhere safe to go.
I had no there was no safety in that. So I could understand where a lot of these birth mothers from years ago would put this, but I found that through that time, that ticking time bomb or pressure cooker couldn't take that much pressure anymore. It couldn't last, and eventually it had to come out, and it always comes out when you least expect it over something totally stupid. Yeah. And it's either in the store or over someone else's baby shower or a sibling having another baby, and mine just turned out to be my sister having a baby, and it had to be a baby girl. And I walked in the other room and I held her and I just sobbed. I mean, the poor baby was drenched, you know, and then I remember telling my sister, you know, oh, she wet herself, and she, you know, I hurried and changed her diaper and changed her blanket and I had to leave, and I just had to pull over and find a place to just sob. And that was part of my owning it, of going, oh my gosh, I just held a baby, let alone a baby girl, you know, and this is why I'm upset. Okay, this is why I'm crying. And to acknowledge that and own it and allow myself to talk about it, whether it was in the car all by myself or in the bathtub all by myself or sitting in the closet trying to pretend I'm hiding from it, I had to acknowledge it and I had to realize. And it was later on that a friend of mine told me that that's part of that mother's intuition, that you kind of feel this wave of emotions and you feel this happiness or you feel like this nervousness and you don't know where it comes from. And you don't really understand it because you don't have that child to acknowledge, oh, they had a bad day today. I kind of sensed something was going on, or they had a good day today and I felt that excitement. You don't understand that, and no one explains that to you. And it wasn't until I had my son, I'm like, oh, it's an energetic thing. It's something that is just naturally there for, I think, every woman. I think even a woman who adopts develops that intuition, and that's part of that wave of emotions and that grieving process. And when you go through steps in your life, that grieving changes, because it's kind of like a I don't want to say hiccup. It's not a hiccup really. It's kind of like a highlight in your life. Yeah. Whether you get married or whether you get pregnant again, or your son or daughter makes their first step, that your subconscious kind of kicks in and you start grieving that because you weren't able to express that joy with that other child.
Well, and I placed a son, so I had my next two children were girls. And when we got pregnant the third time, although it was a surprise, I'm like, it's gonna be another girl. I'm gonna have placed my only son. Yeah. I'm never gonna get to have a little boy. And when we found out it was a boy, my jaw dropped. I was like, what? And it was such a shock. I didn't know how to process it, because I'm like, I don't know that I should feel this way. Yeah. Like, I'm feeling sad. I don't know that I should feel sad. Yeah. But then after a while, I was like, I get to have my own little boy. Like, I know he's theirs, but he is mine. He is my little blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy, and they have their blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy, and like, he has all his milestones. It's like, oh, I wonder if they felt that way when he did this. I wonder if they felt that way when he had his first step.
I think that brings up a good point, that when you're working through grief, that you need to be looking for you need to acknowledge your grief, but you also need to be looking for the new good things that are happening in your life. You need to be acknowledging that your life is okay, that you're happy. And I even sometimes say that grief is actually really an honoring of your loss. And even though it might feel really hard and really negative, that's actually really a positive thing to be able to every once in a while cry about your child or feel sad about the child that you placed is an honor to that child, and it is a testament that that you did this because you love this child. You still love this child, and nobody can tell you never loved this child. And so it's a hard thing, but sometimes you can actually turn it around and say, this is a good thing. Means love.
I called it crying, and I had to allow myself to cry. How weird that sounds.
I know.
It's okay to cry. A friend of mine told me, she says, you have to look at it as a way of releasing.
Yeah.
It's a way of just releasing. And I thought, wow, she's got a great, way of looking at it. It was releasing all those emotions and feelings that I kept bottled up. Hence the whole, time capsule that was ready to blow up.
Yeah.
If I didn't release any of that pressure, it would just get worse and worse. So it is a great release, and it is an honor. And you're going to deal with it through milestones in your life. And it doesn't go away, hence the roller coaster. But then there's milestones that you realize you're missing, that you're not there for your child, or maybe you see a picture and there's that bittersweet moment of, oh, that baby is 10 years old now, or 20 years old now, and they're so happy and they're excited. And at the same time, you're like, and yet I'm not going to be there, So you start playing that what if game, which is part of that whole process of relief,
I think sometimes it happens just out of the blue, but then sometimes you can kind of see, ahead of time that maybe on the birthday I might need to be maybe I need to make sure I take the day off, or whatever it is that's going to help you, holidays and those things. You just kind of got to be aware, and you can set up some helps for you, not to push the grief away.
Right.
But to be prepared for the grief.
Allow yourself to that be a day that it's okay to be whatever emotion you go through.
Yeah.
And over time, it's gonna lessen. It's not gonna be as bad. It's gonna change. I mean, I celebrating my first birth Mother's Day, like that was very awkward, but at the same time, it was so cool because I met women who had placed over 20 years ago, and I went, okay, they got through it. They're fine.
I think through the years, someone said, well, as time goes, it gets easier. And I kind of laugh and I go, well, no, time doesn't make it easier. I think time just allows you a way to process it.
So it lessens it.
And
the
processing it is what makes it easier. It's not the time, it's the processing it as you go through life and you go through your milestones. You're processing it. And even remembering the day that you placed, you process that over and over again, whether you realize it or not. And when you process it over and over again, your understanding and your heart changes, whether you're helping somebody else or whether you're going through a milestone or you're even going through a grief, you're still processing in a different way. And I think that makes you a better person. I think that what makes you a stronger woman, to be able to be the person you are, let alone a mother, wife, sister, whatever that may be. I think that makes you that stronger person. You have to allow that to happen and understand that does make you a better person, even though it probably really sucks that day.
Yeah, exactly.